I'm 38 years old and live in Denver, Colorado. Until 18 months ago, I was just another guy grinding through life on a construction worker's salary, dealing with condescending remarks from my family and feeling invisible at every gathering. My family never saw me as anything more than the disappointment. I have 3 siblings. My older sister, Victoria, is a successful real estate agent who owns multiple properties and never lets anyone forget it. She built her empire with our parents' financial backing and constant praise. My younger brother, Marcus, is a software engineer at a tech startup, living in a downtown loft that our parents helped finance. Then there's my twin brother, Daniel, who works as a personal trainer, but has never been able to hold down steady work. Despite being the same age as me, he's always been treated as the baby of the family. I was always the forgotten one. When I got injured on a construction site 3 years ago and couldn't work for 2 months, my family acted like it was an inconvenience. Victoria told me I should have chosen a safer career like normal people. Marcus offered to lend me money, but only after lecturing me about financial responsibility for an hour. Daniel just said, "That sucks, bro," and changed the subject. But my parents? They didn't even call to check how I was doing. When I mentioned struggling to pay rent during recovery, my mother said, "Well, maybe this is a wake-up call to get your life together." Last year, my great-aunt Josephine passed away. She was my grandmother's sister, a woman who lived alone in a massive house in Vermont, and whom most of the family had written off as the crazy cat lady. I was probably the only one who visited her regularly, not because I expected anything, but because she was genuinely interesting. She'd tell me stories about traveling the world in the 1960s, about the art she collected, about the investments she'd made that no one in the family knew about. When the lawyer called me about the will reading, I assumed I'd maybe get some old books or a piece of jewelry. What I got instead was everything. $22 million after taxes, plus her house, her art collection, and various other assets. Josephine had left me a letter explaining why. "You were the only one who saw me as a person, not as an obligation. You listened to my stories. You brought me groceries when I was sick. You never asked for anything. That's rare in this family." I was in complete shock. I hired the best attorneys money could buy, set up trusts, created investment strategies, and kept it completely secret. I continued living in my small apartment, going to work, acting like nothing had changed. But something was eating at me from the inside. The way my family had always treated me, like I was worth less than them, like my problems didn't matter, like I was just taking up space at family dinners. I decided I needed to know who they really were before I made any life-changing decisions. So I created a test. I told everyone that I'd been laid off from my construction job due to budget cuts. I said I was having trouble finding new work, that I was behind on rent, that my truck had broken down, and I couldn't afford to fix it. I made it sound desperate, because that's exactly how they'd made me feel so many times before. I went to each of them separately, asking for help. Victoria listened to my story while checking her phone. When I finished, she sighed and said, "Look, Jake, I've told you before that construction is a dead-end career. I could get you a job cleaning houses for one of my property management clients, but you'd have to start at minimum wage and prove you're reliable." She offered me $50 to get you through the week, but made it clear it was a loan that needed to be repaid quickly. Marcus was slightly better. He offered to review my resume and help me understand what employers are looking for in today's market. He gave me $200 but spent 20 minutes explaining how it was coming out of his emergency fund and how I needed to have better financial planning. He also suggested I move back in with our parents to cut expenses. Daniel's response was the most painful because it was the most honest. He just shrugged and said, "Man, I wish I could help, but I'm pretty broke myself. Maybe try asking Victoria. She's got money." No offer to help in any other way, no concern about where I'd sleep or what I'd eat. My parents' reaction was the worst. My father actually laughed when I told them about losing my job. "Well, son, maybe this is life's way of telling you to try something that doesn't involve manual labor." My mother nodded along and said, "We're on a fixed income now with retirement, so we can't really help financially. But you're young and strong. You'll figure it out." The only person who came through was my cousin Sarah. Sarah is 29, a single mother working as a nurse's aide, barely scraping by with 2 young kids. She's never been the family favorite either. She got pregnant at 19, never married the father, and has been judged by everyone ever since. She lives in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment and drives a car held together by prayer and duct tape. When I called her and explained my situation, she didn't hesitate. "Jake, oh my God, of course I'll help. Look, I don't have much money, but I can give you $300. That's all I have saved right now. And you can sleep on my couch as long as you need. The kids love their cousin Jake." She paused, then added, "I know what it feels like when everyone treats you like you're not good enough. You've never made me feel that way, and I won't do it to you." That broke something inside me. Here was someone who had almost nothing, who'd been judged and dismissed by the same family that dismissed me, and she was the only one offering real help without conditions or lectures. I accepted her $300, but told her I'd found a place to stay. I couldn't take her couch, not when I secretly had millions in the bank. But that gesture, that immediate willingness to sacrifice for me, told me everything I needed to know about who deserved my loyalty. After the test, I gradually distanced myself from everyone except Sarah. I told them I'd found work out of state and would be traveling a lot. I moved to a better apartment under a different name, started investing seriously, and began planning my next moves. For 6 months, I observed from a distance. Sarah would text me regularly, asking how I was doing, if I needed anything, sending pictures of her kids with messages like, "They miss Uncle Jake." She never asked for her money back, never made me feel guilty for disappearing. Meanwhile, the rest of my family barely noticed I was gone. During this time, I started learning about business acquisition. I researched Victoria's real estate company and discovered it wasn't as successful as she pretended. She'd over-leveraged on several properties, had 3 lawsuits pending from unhappy tenants, and was struggling to make mortgage payments on her personal home. Marcus's startup was hemorrhaging money and about to fold. Daniel was still bouncing between jobs, living paycheck to paycheck. I founded my own company, Drake Holdings, focused on acquiring and restructuring struggling businesses. I assembled a team of experts, rented office space, and started operating. Everything was done through shell companies and trusts to maintain my anonymity. My first major acquisition? Victoria's real estate company. She'd been desperately seeking investors for months. When my lawyers approached her with an offer, she jumped at it without even asking too many questions about the buyer. The purchase price was fair, not generous, but fair based on the company's actual value, not the inflated worth she'd claimed. The day I revealed myself as the new owner was unforgettable. I walked into what used to be her office, now my office, wearing a simple button-down shirt and jeans. Victoria was there with her assistant, going over files she was supposed to transfer to the new management team. "Jake?" She looked confused. "What are you doing here? I thought you were working construction in Montana or something." I sat down behind her former desk and opened my laptop. "I'm here for the transition meeting, Victoria. I'm the new owner." The color drained from her face. "What are you talking about?" I explained everything. The inheritance, the company I'd built, the acquisition. I showed her the documents, the bank transfers, everything legal and binding. She stared at the papers for a full minute before looking up. "This is some kind of joke." "The joke," I said calmly, "was when you offered me a job cleaning houses for minimum wage while I was supposedly homeless. That was hilarious." She tried to recover, switching into what I recognized as her sales mode. "Jake, this is incredible. I always knew you had potential. We should celebrate. Maybe we could work together, combine our expertise." I cut her off. "You'll have the opportunity to interview for a position with the new management structure, just like everyone else." That's when it hit her that the power dynamic had completely shifted. I restructured the entire company. I kept the good employees, eliminated redundant positions, and created clear accountability measures. Victoria was offered a position as a junior agent, a significant demotion, but still a decent job if she was willing to actually work for it. She lasted 3 weeks before quitting in a dramatic scene where she accused me of destroying the family business she'd built and letting power go to my head. I simply replied, "This is the same energy you gave me when I needed help. How does it feel?" Marcus reached out immediately after hearing about the acquisition. Suddenly, he wanted to have lunch, to catch up, to discuss opportunities. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. He arrived with a portfolio and a presentation. "Jake, I've been thinking about your company's tech needs. My startup is developing exactly the kind of software platform that could revolutionize your property management systems." I listened to his pitch. It was actually pretty good. Too bad his startup was going under due to mismanagement and lack of funding. When he finished, I asked, "Marcus, do you remember what you said when I asked for help last year?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I know I wasn't as supportive as I could have been. You gave me $200 with a lecture about financial responsibility. You suggested I move back in with mom and dad. You treated me like a charity case who needed to learn a lesson." He started to protest, but I continued. "Now you want me to invest in your failing company? To hand you a contract that could save your business? Jake, come on, we're family." "Family helps each other without conditions," I said. "You had conditions. I don't." I stood up and left him at the table. Daniel's approach was different. He just started showing up places where he thought I might be. He'd heard about the acquisition through family gossip and was trying to ambush me into conversation. One day, he cornered me at the grocery store. "Bro, this is crazy. You're like rich now. We need to hang out more. Remember when we used to be so close?" I stared at him. "When were we close, Daniel?" "Come on, man, we're twins. We have that special bond." "The special bond where you couldn't be bothered to help when I was supposedly homeless?" He laughed nervously. "I was going through my own stuff, you know." But now we can help each other. I've got some great business ideas. I'm sure you do, I said and walked away. My parents' reaction was the most predictable. They called me immediately after Victoria's meltdown, demanding I come over for a family meeting. I went, but only because I wanted to see this conversation play out. They sat me down in their living room like I was still a teenager in trouble. My mother started with, "Jake, we're very disappointed in how you've been treating your sister." "Disappointed?" I repeated. "That's interesting." My father jumped in. "You've let this money change you. You're not the son we raised." I almost laughed. "You barely raised me, Dad. You ignored me for 38 years unless you needed someone to blame for something." "That's not true," my mother protested. "We love all our children equally." "Really? When I was injured and couldn't work, did you call to check on me? Did you offer help? Did you even ask if I had food to eat?" Silence. "But when Victoria's business was struggling, you co-signed her loans. When Marcus needed money for his startup, you refinanced your house. When Daniel gets arrested for drunk driving, you pay his legal fees. What did you do when I needed help?" More silence. My father finally spoke. "We always knew you were strong enough to figure things out on your own. That's a nice way of saying you didn't care enough to try." I stood up to leave, but my mother grabbed my arm. "Jake, wait. We need to tell you something. We're having some financial difficulties. The medications, the house payments. We could use some help." And there it was, the real reason for the family meeting. "You want me to give you money," I said. "We're not asking for charity," my father said quickly. "Maybe a loan or some kind of family arrangement." I looked at both of them. These people who'd given me so little emotional support throughout my life, who dismissed my problems, who'd made me feel invisible and worthless. Now they were asking me to solve their financial problems. "I'll think about it," I said and left. I never gave them money. But I did something better. I paid for a financial advisor to help them restructure their debts and create a sustainable budget. I also set up a medical fund that would cover any serious health emergencies. They'd never be homeless or without health care, but they wouldn't get a blank check either. The person I did help was Sarah. One Saturday morning, I drove to her apartment building. She answered the door in pajamas, looking exhausted. The kids were watching cartoons in the background, and the place smelled like breakfast and laundry detergent. "Jake!" She hugged me immediately. "Oh my God, I've missed you. How are you? Are you eating enough? You look thin." I sat down with her and told her everything. The inheritance, the test, the acquisition, all of it. She listened without interrupting, her eyes getting wider with each revelation. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Jake, I didn't help you because I thought you'd pay me back someday. I helped you because I love you, because you're my family in the way that matters." The next week, I bought her a house. Nothing ostentatious. A nice 3-bedroom place in a safe neighborhood with a good school district. I also set up college funds for her kids and offered her a position as operations manager at my company. She cried when she saw the house. "I can't accept this, Jake. It's too much." "Sarah, you gave me everything you had when you thought I had nothing. This isn't charity. This is family taking care of family." She hugged me then, and I felt something I'd never felt before from my actual family. Unconditional love and acceptance. Sarah turned out to be a natural at business management. She had incredible instincts for organization and people management. Within 6 months, she was running day-to-day operations better than Victoria ever had. The rest of my family eventually stopped trying to reconnect when it became clear I wasn't going to be their ATM. Victoria moved to another city and started over with a small real estate firm. Marcus's startup finally folded, and he took a regular job at a tech company. Daniel drifted in and out of various schemes and jobs, occasionally sending me LinkedIn requests that I ignored. My parents and I settled into a polite but distant relationship. We exchanged Christmas cards and birthday texts, but that's about it. They never apologized for how they treated me, but they also stopped asking for money after the financial advisor meeting. A year after the acquisition, I expanded Drake Holdings to include a small investment fund focused on helping working-class people buy homes. We offer down payment assistance and financial counseling to people who've been overlooked by traditional lenders. People like Sarah, like the old me, people who work hard but don't have family money or connections. Sarah runs this division now. She has an amazing ability to connect with clients who've been dismissed by other institutions. "I know what it feels like to be told you're not good enough for something you've worked towards," she tells them. We're going to change that. The business has been incredibly successful, not just financially, but in terms of impact. We've helped over 200 families buy homes, most of them first-generation homeowners. Sarah keeps a wall of photos in her office, families standing in front of their new houses, kids playing in backyards, couples holding house keys. "This is what success looks like," she told me one day, gesturing at the photos. "Not the money, this." I've also started a scholarship fund for children from single-parent households. It's administered anonymously, but I make sure Sarah's kids will never have to worry about college costs. Last month, I got an unexpected phone call from Victoria. She was in Denver on business and wanted to have dinner. I was curious enough to agree. She looked different, older, more tired, but also somehow more real. The polished real estate agent facade was gone. "I owe you an apology," she said after we'd ordered. "I've been thinking about what you said when you bought the company, about how I treated you when you asked for help." I listened. I was so caught up in being successful, in maintaining this image, that I forgot what actually mattered. "You were my brother, and you needed help, and I treated you like an inconvenience." She paused, looking down at her hands. I've learned a lot this past year. Starting over, having to prove myself all over again, working for people who don't know my name or my reputation. It's humbling. "Good," I said. "Humbling experiences are valuable." She laughed, but not unkindly. "You know what's funny? I always thought you were the failure in the family. Turns out you were the only one who understood what real success looks like." "What's that?" "Having people who actually care about you, having principles you won't compromise, building something that matters, not just something that looks impressive." It was probably the most honest conversation we'd ever had. I didn't forgive her completely. Too much had happened for that. But I respected her for acknowledging the truth. "Are you happy with how everything turned out?" she asked as we were leaving. I thought about it. I'm not happy that it took inheriting millions from my family to see me as a person worth respecting. But I'm happy that I learned who actually cared about me before it was too late to appreciate them. These days, my life is quiet but fulfilling. I live in a nice but not ostentatious house about 15 minutes from Sarah's place. I drive a reliable car, wear clothes that fit well but aren't flashy, and keep my wealth largely invisible. I spend most weekends with Sarah and her kids. They call me Uncle Jake, and I've become deeply involved in their lives. I go to soccer games and parent-teacher conferences and birthday parties. I help with homework and teach them about money management and listen to their problems without judgment. Sarah's kids don't know about the money. They just know that Uncle Jake is always there when they need him, and that their mom has a job she loves and a house with a backyard and college funds waiting for them. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my original family had passed the test. If Victoria had offered real help without conditions. If Marcus had shown genuine concern. If my parents had treated me with basic human dignity during my supposed crisis. Would I have shared my inheritance with them? Probably. Would we have built something meaningful together? Maybe. But I've learned that you can't build genuine relationships on a foundation of conditional love and respect. The people who care about you when you have nothing are the people who deserve to be in your life when you have everything. Sarah proved that blood isn't always thicker than water. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. My biological family lost their chance to be part of my success because they never bothered to be part of my struggles. That was their choice, made over decades of small dismissals and casual cruelties. Sarah gained a brother, a business partner, and a secure future because she chose kindness when it would have been easier to turn away. The difference between them isn't money or education or opportunity. It's character. And character, I've learned, is revealed not when people think you might be useful to them someday, but when they believe you have nothing to offer except your humanity. Sarah saw my humanity when no one else did. Now she gets to share in everything I've built, not because she asked for it, but because she earned it through simple human decency. That's the real inheritance Aunt Josephine left me. Not just the money, but the clarity to see who deserved my loyalty and love. 2 years later, I can honestly say I sleep better now than I ever did when I was desperately seeking my family's approval. I know exactly where I stand with everyone in my life, and they know where they stand with me. The loneliness I used to feel, that deep ache of being invisible to the people who were supposed to love me, has been replaced by the warmth of being truly known and valued by someone who chose to see me. Money didn't change who I was. It just revealed who everyone else was, and that revelation, painful as it was, turned out to be the most valuable inheritance of all. Update 1. 6 months after I wrote this, Marcus reached out again. His new job wasn't going well, and he'd heard through the family grapevine about the success of Drake Holdings. This time, his approach was different. "Jake, I know I messed up before," he said when he called. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about how I treated you, and I want to make it right." I was skeptical, but I agreed to meet him for coffee. He looked genuinely remorseful, not the calculated regret of someone who wants something, but the real discomfort of someone facing their own behavior. "I keep thinking about that day you asked for help," he said. "I gave you money, but I made you feel small for needing it. I lectured you about financial responsibility when what you needed was just support, basic human support." He paused, stirring his coffee absently. "I've been in therapy, actually. Working through some stuff about competition and success and family dynamics, my therapist helped me realize that I always saw your struggles as a reflection of choices rather than circumstances. Like if you were struggling, it must be because you weren't trying hard enough or making good decisions. And now, I asked, now I realize that's bullshit. Life is random and hard, and sometimes people need help through no fault of their own. And even when it is someone's fault, if you love them, you help first and judge never. I appreciated the honesty, but I wasn't ready to just reset everything. Marcus, I appreciate you saying this, but I need you to understand that this isn't just about one conversation. This is about 38 years of being treated like the family disappointment. He nodded. I know, I can't undo that, but I'd like to try to do better going forward, if you're open to it. I told him I'd think about it. Over the next few months, Marcus proved he meant what he said. He didn't ask for anything. No job opportunities, no investment advice, no family reconciliation efforts. He just started showing up in small ways, remembering my birthday, sending articles he thought I'd find interesting, asking how Sarah and the kids were doing. Eventually, I offered him some freelance consulting work with Drake Holdings, not because I felt obligated to, but because I wanted to see if his changed attitude was genuine. It was. Marcus approached the work with humility and competence. He made suggestions without overstepping, met deadlines without drama, and treated Sarah with the respect she deserved as my business partner. 6 months later, I offered him a full-time position as our technology director, not because he was my brother, but because he'd proven himself capable and trustworthy. I don't want to take this if it's pity or family obligation, he said when I made the offer. It's not, I assured him. It's because you've shown me that people can actually change if they want to badly enough. Marcus has been with the company for 8 months now. He and Sarah work well together, and he's become a positive part of our team culture. He still goes to therapy, and he started volunteering with a local financial literacy program. We're not as close as we might have been if things had been different from the beginning, but we have something real now. A relationship built on mutual respect rather than family obligation. I know I can't be the brother I should have been when we were kids, he told me recently, but I'd like to try to be the brother you deserve now, if you'll let me. It's a work in progress, but it's genuine progress. Update 2. Daniel showed up at my office last week, not to ask for money or opportunity, but to deliver a letter. I'm not good with words, he said, handing me an envelope, but I wrote something I need you to read. The letter was 3 pages long, handwritten, full of cross-outs and corrections. It started with an apology for being a selfish asshole for our entire lives, and went on to detail specific memories of times when he dismissed me, ignored me, or actively made me feel bad about myself. He wrote about our childhood, about how he'd always felt like he was competing with me for attention, and how he dealt with that by deciding I wasn't worth competing with. He wrote about how he'd watched our parents favor Victoria and Marcus and had decided to align himself with what seemed like the winning side rather than standing up for me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, the letter concluded. I know I can't undo the damage I did by treating you like you didn't matter, but I need you to know that I see it now. I see how wrong I was, and I see how strong you had to be to survive all of us. I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. When I looked up, Daniel was crying. I don't expect anything from you, he said. I just needed you to know that someone in our family sees what you built and understands what it cost you. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. Daniel, I appreciate this. I do. But I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. He nodded. If I hadn't inherited money, if I hadn't bought Victoria's company, if I was still working construction and struggling to pay rent, would you be here right now? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, probably not. And that's the most shameful thing about all of this. It took seeing you succeed to make me realize I'd never bothered to see you at all. At least he was honest. I can't give you a job or money or access to my life, I told him. Too much has happened, and I don't trust that your regret is about more than missing out on my success. He nodded again. I understand. I wanted you to know that I know what I did, and I'm sorry. He left after that, and I haven't heard from him since. But I kept the letter, not because I'm ready to forgive him, but because it was the first time in our lives that he bothered to really see me as a person worth apologizing to. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it's the closest thing to closure I'll get from that relationship. Final update. It's been 3 years now since I first learned about my inheritance. Drake Holdings has expanded to include property management, home buying assistance, and a small community development fund. We employ 47 people, and Sarah runs the day-to-day operations while I focus on strategic planning and new initiatives. Sarah's kids are thriving. Her daughter, Maya, is 14 now and wants to be a business owner like her mom. Her son, Tyler, is 11 and obsessed with building things. He spends hours in my garage working on projects and asking me about construction techniques. Sarah married her longtime boyfriend David last year. He's a good man who treats her kids like his own and never made me feel like a third wheel in their family. Their wedding was small and beautiful, held in the backyard of the house I bought her. I walked her down the aisle, and she introduced me in her vows as the brother who chose our family just like we chose him. Marcus is still with the company and has become a genuine friend. He's dating someone now, a teacher who volunteers with the financial literacy program he works with. They're talking about getting married, and he's asked if I'd be his best man. I said yes. My parents and I have settled into a cordial but distant relationship. We exchange holiday cards and occasionally have dinner when I'm feeling generous. They've never fully acknowledged how they treated me, but they've stopped asking for money and seem to have accepted that our relationship will never be what it once was. Victoria and I talk maybe twice a year. She's doing well in her new city, has built a smaller but more sustainable business, and seems genuinely happier. She's in a relationship with someone who doesn't care about her money or status, and that's been good for her perspective on what really matters. Daniel sent me a Christmas card last year with a photo of him and his girlfriend and their new baby. He's working as a personal trainer at a gym and seems to have found some stability. We're not in regular contact, but the anger I used to feel toward him has faded into something more like indifference. The biggest surprise has been how much I've enjoyed running a business focused on helping people rather than just making money. Every family we help buy their first home, every person we help get back on their feet financially, every employee who tells me this is the best job they've ever had. It all feels like a form of healing. I think Aunt Josephine would be proud of what I've built. Not just the financial success, but the way I've used her gift to create opportunities for people who remind me of who I used to be. Hardworking, decent people who just needed someone to believe in them. Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if my original family had been different. If they'd shown me love and support from the beginning. If they'd valued me for who I was, rather than dismissing me for who I wasn't. But then I look at what I have now. Sarah and her family, Marcus rebuilding himself into someone worth knowing, a business that makes a real difference in people's lives, the respect of employees who see me as a leader worth following. And I realize that maybe everything happened exactly as it needed to. My biological family's rejection taught me to recognize genuine love when I found it. Their conditional acceptance taught me the value of unconditional loyalty. Their dismissal of my worth taught me to see and value worth in others that might be overlooked. I'm not grateful for the pain they caused me, but I'm grateful for the strength and perspective it gave me. The scared, overlooked kid who used to sit silently at family dinners, hoping someone would notice him, is gone. In its place is a man who knows exactly who he is, who he can count on, and what he's capable of building. That transformation is worth more than any inheritance. Aunt Josephine didn't just leave me money. She left me the chance to discover who I really was when I stopped trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. And who I really am, it turns out, is someone worth loving after all. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. I know it's a long story, but it took 3 years to live through, and I wanted to share all of it. For anyone dealing with family members who make you feel invisible or worthless, you're not. Sometimes the family you choose is the only family worth having.